You're welcome back to the award-winning Rubbin Minds. And we're going to be moving on now to the week that was, and I have here with me Uche Briggs. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
We're going to be looking at the week that was, and it's one of the main highlights of this show every week. And I want to start off with Mr. President. He's been under fire a lot recently with regards to his traveling, and I want to talk about that. You know, there's this perception now that he spends more time outside of Nigeria than in Nigeria. And this week he's been to Saudi Arabia and I think Qatar. 2 countries in a week. What are your thoughts on that? Is this something that you think is necessary, as the APC has explained, you know, with regards to trying to launder our image and also help get collaborators to fight terrorism, and also, you know, with the dwindling oil prices, the reason for going to the Middle East now was to also negotiate with, you know, members of OPEC to see what can be done to bring prices up or to take price up and all of that. Are these trips necessary?
To an extent it is. To an extent the president has some work doing. You know, he has some work to do, rather, you know, to try and get us aligned with the Committee of Nations. So yes, to an extent it is, but there is a worry, okay? The trips are, you know, a bit too often, right? You have Reuters reported that he had 26 trips and he has not made a trip to the Niger Delta and to Lagos. And so what we have is, you know, a repeat of the last administration. Okay, so the president has taken it a step higher in his bedman ability to, you know, just hop around the world. And this is a worry for me because the very grave concerns and the questions that we have, we never get to hear them from the president right here in Nigeria, okay? He's addressing concerns, he's addressing grave concerns outside in Saudi Arabia and all of that, and that's a problem, that's a worry. The president needs to, you know, be in Nigeria, you know, and work on ensuring that the things that need fixing here are fixed. You know, take, for example, the budget. You know, last week, the president said that he had never heard of budget padding. And it speaks to a certain level of ignorance, okay? Because if you were going to fight, you know, corruption, if you are going to have that campaign, if that's going to be one of the main campaigns that you have, you should be able to understand the system and understand how what you're fighting, understand how the system is structured. You know, I don't see the president doing that when he's hopping from Saudi Arabia today, you know, in the UK tomorrow. I think he needs to sit down and focus on the job at hand.
But he also said he's doing his job. So how does he cut that balance?
I'm sorry, but you know, there are a lot of things that the president has lost sight of in the first couple of months that the president has been elected. Okay, it's very shameful that we have this kind of budget fiasco to start with. It is very shameful that we cannot, you know, look at the budgets and say, yes, these are the gains that we fought for. And so when he says that he's doing all these things because he's trying to put Nigeria on the right map, I'm thinking there is a lot of work to be done here, right? Last week, the president, you know, ordered for the arrest of Tompolo, okay? The president has never visited the Niger Delta. And these are there were concerns before the president got elected that he was going to marginalize some of those areas. And he is giving, you know, the opposition parties the reason to believe that these fears are valid. Okay, so the president has jobs to be done here. To an extent, the trips are necessary, but I think it's a little bit overboard as it is.
Okay, let's move on now to some other matters, of course, that did catch our attention during the week. And I want to talk about, we've talked about the budget, and we're not sure when it's going to be passed now. We're not sure if it's going to be taken back to Mr. President to redo. I mean, we did hear, I think it was the president actually in Saudi Arabia saying that he was not happy with the way the budget was basically.
In Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. What's going to happen going forward? I mean, March is by the corner. The president is almost 1 year in office as it is now. Do you think that budget is going to see the light of day anytime soon?
It would. It has to, right? But we do not, I am not confident in the capacity of the president to handle his ship, because the level of ignorance that has been demonstrated, at worst, this thing is culpability. It speaks to a man that does not understand the needs of the Nigerian people as it is. And so yes, the budget will see the light of day. Yes, the budget will be passed, but when you have that scale of budget padding, it only says that the president is not running the ship right. And so when it's going to be passed, how it's going to be passed, we do not have those details now.
How much of this responsibility is the president, seeing as we have a minister of budget, we also have a minister of finance? These are people who I'm sure should have walked around this thing. How much of it is Mr. President's responsibility?
The president is the CEO of the nation as we speak, right? There are people whose responsibility it is, right, to vet the budget and all of that and all of that. And I can totally understand that, but the buck stops at his table. Okay, if that kind of error, ridiculous sums, you budget above 300 million to connect the president's villa to the driver's rest, it makes no sense whatsoever. And so if the president does not have people within his, cabinet that can vet these budgets and that can give us, the budgets that we voted for, to be honest, right? Because a lot of the promises that was made under the president, during the campaign period, was that the president was going to come and tighten the ship, was going to, clear corruption. But this is a huge slap in the face of Nigerians. This casts a shadow of doubt on the anti-graft policy of the president. And so, yes, if the president knows that he is very serious about corruption, that should be his first, task, to ensure that that budget is pristine. And so far, so good. The president has failed in that regard. And so whatever else he wants to do, the question would always come up as to why the president did not do this, why the president did not do that. So right now we are fighting corruption, but at the same time we have a budget that is a joke, to be honest. So the president cannot justify, he can't marry both situations.
You mentioned promises there, and something that came to mind was the 5,000 naira stipend, if I may use that word, that was supposed to be given to unemployed Nigerians, which we started hearing whispers this week will not be fulfilled eventually. We don't know if it's confirmed that it's not going to happen or if it's going to wait for now, seeing as like the economy is not particularly great. But that's another one promise now that's looking like it's not going to be fulfilled.
Ebuka, the promise can't be fulfilled. The capacity of the APC to be mendacious is just alarming, And that was a red flag during the campaign that the PDP could have picked on. But that is simply not sustainable. Simply not sustainable. And the APC has, successfully lied their way through it. I respect the president for coming out to say now that he will focus on infrastructure and stuff and, not just give out money to people who, are not working. The idea of it sounds good, but it's a disaster for an economy such as this. We are struggling as it is. We can't start handing out, stipends to people who are not working. And this is, something like this is what appears in the NYSC scheme, okay? And that's why you see that people would forge their way into the NYSC scheme because they know that they're going to get paid money for stuff that is, neither here nor there. So yes, the president did say that he was going to, the only thing he didn't say was that, I'm going back on my words. That's the only thing that the president didn't say. But so far, so good. There was no way that promise was justifiable. There was no way that promise was actionable. Soludos, made this, if you remember when he wrote the article, he made this comment. There is no way that is, a sustainable venture, okay? And what we deserve from the president is to come up to us and say, I promised this during my election, right? And I'm not going to be able to fulfill this because I've looked at the numbers and the numbers don't add up. Mr. President should not be in Saudi Arabia telling us that, he's making it sound like, Nigerians forced him to do this. Nigerians did not. You promised to do it. If there is a change, and we can totally get the change. If there is a change in that promise, you need to be able to man up and tell us there is a change in that promise. Do not go to Saudi Arabia and make us look like fools.
Okay, you sound very unhappy, but we're going to just move on now finally to sports. And one of the shockers, I don't know if it was much of a shocker to people, but was the resignation at midnight on Twitter by Coach Sunday Olise as the Super Eagles coach. And we do hear that we do have a new team now comprising of Samson Siasia, Emmanuel Amunike, and I think Salisu Yusuf. They're going to now be a team of coaches for the Super Eagles, at least for the next game against Egypt, pending if maybe one of them gets appointed or we have a new coach or technical advisor, like we like to say. Olise did give his reasons for resigning, being that there was no support from government, being the NFF or whoever the agency that he was working with is. Did that come as a surprise for you?
Not really, no. We need...
In less than a year?
Not really. I mean, Olise has always been a very strong-willed person, okay? And there was no way I could see him function within, you know, a system as fundamentally flawed as the NFF. If the NFF is not going to get their acts right, they can bring whoever they want. Okay, so we have a situation whereby, and it's a shame because you're in a country where people really don't care one way or the other if contracts, are upheld. But you have a situation whereby the NFF has, created the atmosphere for this kind of back and forth in the media. So regardless of who handles the national team going forward, this is bound to happen. It will probably be 2 years. It will probably be, but it's terrible for our football.
Many have said we should forget 2017 Nations Cup and 2018 World Cup. Do you think...
no, we can go.
Do you think we're going to qualify for those tournaments? The Nations Cup and the World Cup, at this rate?
We probably will qualify, okay? We probably will qualify. In our character to, get the wins at the very last minute, we probably will qualify. We'll go there, and it will just be another sightseeing mission, okay? So, for me, the tragedy here is that our football cannot develop because the body solely responsible to ensure that this happens, they are preoccupied with playing mundane politics. Okay, the structure needs to be fixed. I have not seen a fierce determination from the NFF to fix the structure, a fierce determination from the NFF to go after the private individuals and private organizations to partner and sponsor. I have not seen that commitment. Okay, and I've not seen the commitment within NFF to organize and ensure that if they get a coach in, they can retain the coach, retain talents. Right, so we can have a conversation about Olise's behavior later on, which is a different conversation. But the NFF itself as a body needs to be able to get its structure right, because if it doesn't, we would keep going around in circles.
Well, thank you very much. We can only keep supporting the Super Eagles. Hopefully, we do have better days ahead with a few more wins in the bag before the year runs out. Thanks for being here today, Uche.
Thank you.
We'll be right back talking more right here on Rubbin Minds. Please do not go anywhere.